Hi everyone, I thought I would show you how to make some bloomers and a little halter top. And that's what it's going to look like. Right here I have cut two pieces for the top and the bottom. And then I cut two pieces for the leg facing. And then I cut the top of the bloomer and the bottom of the bloomer, and that's 4 straps for the top. Right here I'm gonna place the top of the bloomer onto the back of the bloomer, right sides facing, and I'm gonna sew down each side at the sewing machine. Here I am at the machine, and I'm going to sew those sides at the seam allowance, and I'm sorry about my head getting in the way there. I decided to mark that seam allowance so that I'd know where to place it on my machine, and that's what I'm doing there. I backstitch at the beginning and the end. There I am sewing the other side. Now I'm going to sew the bottom of the bloomers. This is really a pretty easy pattern for a beginner, so if you're a beginning sewer, then you might enjoy this pattern. If you enjoy sewing baby clothes, that's what I like to do. Here I'm at the serger, and I'm going to serge those seams because I don't want them to unravel. Cotton fabric tends to unravel, so I'm going to serge those. I could have probably fast forwarded through some of this, but for someone who's new, it's nice for them to see the process. So that's why I leave a lot of that in. That it's just kind of repetitive, but I want you to see exactly what I'm doing. And there they are. Now we're back over at the table, and we're going to sew the leg facings, the ends of those. And we put them right sides together, and then we take it over to the machine, and we're going to sew just across that, the short end. There we are. We're going to sew that seam. We backstitch at the beginning and the end, and we're going to do the same thing on that next one. We fold that out like that, and then we're going to take it over the iron, and we're going to press it. Now we're pressing. Let's just make sure those stay open so that they're easier to sew actually. There we are. We have the bloomers, and we're going to open them up so that the leg is open, and we're going to place that right sides together. seam to seam. That seam we just pressed is going to go to the outside seam, and we're going to pin it all the way around. Now we're at the machine, and I'm sorry again about my head being in the way. We're going to just sew around that. So we sew all the way around the seam there, or the pin, where we just put those pins and the leg facing. We're just going to sew around it. And I stay right on the edge of the bloomer and the leg facing, and I just sew around it. Removing the pins as I go. Now we're at the iron, and we're going to press about a 1/4 inch seam around just the edge of that leg facing. So we press all the way around it about a 1/4 inch, and then we'll fold it again. After we finish that, we're going to fold that in on top of that part we just sewed. You'll see me do that here in a minute. Right there, we're going to do that. So we fold it in. We're going to make a casing for the elastic. So we're going to take that. We're going to leave an opening right there for the elastic to go in when we get to that part. And I'm at the table now, and I'm going to pin that. So I'll fold it down, and then I'm going to pin it. I'll just do that all the way around, pinning it all the way around to make a casing. And that's what it'll look like. I've pinned one side already. I've pinned the hole all the way around it. And now I'm at the machine, and I'm just going to sew the inner edge now. But I'm going to leave that little gap so that I have a place to put the elastic in. And I need it big enough for my safety pin, because I use a safety pin. And I connect that to the elastic here in a minute. Staying right on that inner edge, sewing all the way around, removing the pins as I go. And that's where I've marked. I made a little mark so that I knew where to stop and start. Just clipping those threads. I'm going to do the same thing to the next one. Now I've got my elastic. Connect it to my pin. And then I start running it through that opening that I left. I like to put a little pin on the end, safety pin or just a straight pin, something to keep it from pulling all the way through while I'm pulling the safety pin. I'd like to know what you guys sew. If there's something you guys like to sew or prefer to sew, if you could put it in the comments. I'd like to know what y'all sew. I like sewing baby clothes mostly. I do make bags and stuff as well, and I do upcycle some, but I love making baby clothes. Now we're to the end, and I'm going to overlap those a little bit, and then I'll put a little pin in there because the elastic is so small it's hard for me to hold on to. So I'll just put a little safety, or not a safety pin, but a straight pin in there and hold it until I get it under the machine. By the way, my name is Sandra, and I've been on YouTube for a long time, but I just decided to start uploading videos. Just something to do. I used to do hair and I retired, so now I'm just sewing, and so I thought I'd upload some videos. My husband actually encouraged me, so I'm giving it a try. So it's free to subscribe. If you'd like to do that, I'd appreciate it. Now I'm going to put that opening that I left for the elastic underneath there, and I'm going to line that needle up on the previous threads that I already put in there, and I'm going to back stitch, and I'm going to sew that opening closed. Now I'm back at the iron, and I serged around the top of that because I just like it better. And then I'm going to fold that down about 1/4 of an inch, just where the serge is, and I'm going to press it. And then I'm going to fold it again and make a casing for my elastic. That's where I'm making the casing, and I'm pressing it down. I do that all the way around. Now I'm at the machine and I'm going to sew all the way around it, leaving an opening for the elastic. Trimming threads. Now I have my elastic and I'm putting the pin in, safety pin, and I'm going to start putting that elastic in the waistband. All the measurements for the elastic and the seam allowances and all that's in the pattern, so I'll have the name of the pattern in the description if you guys want to go buy it. I bought it off of Etsy. Now I'm taking those safety pins out and I'm going to overlap that elastic and then I'm going to sew it. A lot of people prefer to zigzag elastic, but I've never had a problem just straight stitching across it. I just do it in a couple of spots and then I just pull it through. I've never had a problem. Now I'm doing the straps for the top. So I fold it in half and I press it down so that I have a line, a crease in that so I can see. And now I'm going to fold that one side to that crease that I made and I'm going to press that all the way down. Now I'm going to fold the other side and I'm going to press it. Now I'm going to fold it in half and I'm going to press it. Those little wooden blocks that you see are pressing blocks that my husband made me. I did all 4 of those and I had done 3 prior to. So now here in a minute, I'm going to take it to the machine and sew it. But right here, I open that one end up and I fold it down about 1/4 of an inch and then I press it and then I fold it back the way that I had it originally. And I did that to all 4 of them because we want one end clean and neat. And so I only did one end of each of them. And then I'm going to take them to the machine. I'm going to sew across that end where I folded that one piece in. And then I'll come straight down. So right here, I'm going to back stitch, and then I'm going to come across, and then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to come straight down. And I'm going to do that to all 4 of those straps. Now, right here, I made a change. I decided to do a black top instead of the original that I had cut out. And right here, I'm sewing the ends of each side. So I've got the 2 pieces right sides together, and I'm sewing those ends at the recommended seam allowance. Now I'm going to sew the other end. You see those white marks on there? That's the pattern has the markings where the straps are going to go. Right now I'm at the serger and I'm serging each of those ends. Now I'm back at the table and I'm the raw end of those straps, not the finished end that we did, but the raw end I'm putting. So I've turned the top outside to the right side where it goes if you were putting it on, and I'm pinning those straps to the edge of those lines that I put on there from the pattern. And then I'll turn it over and I'll put the other 2 straps on the back, and I use the same lines that I had marked on there, and I just put it on the edge. They're lined up even, and I put those on there and I pin them, and then I'm going to take them to the machine. And I'm going to sew across them just like that. Here I am at the machine. And I'm going across those several times because straps, they're used a lot to tie and untie. So I kind of went across those several times. And I take the pin out whenever I start sewing that. Back and forth, just sewing across it. I do that to all 4 of them. Now I'm at the iron and I'm going to fold that down. So I fold it and then I refold it to make a casing. So I've turned it back the other direction now, uh, and I'm gonna press it, and then I'm gonna fold it again to make a casing, and then I'll go over to the sewing machine and I will leave an opening for the elastic to fit through, and I'll sew all the way around that, top and bottom, making a casing on the top and the bottom. Now I'm making the casing. Now I'm doing the bottom casing. Or no, I'm still doing the top casing. I thought it was on the bottom. Okay, now I'm at the machine and I'm sewing the casing. As you can see, I'm staying right on the edge and I'm going to leave an opening for the elastic. And be sure not to sew over your straps. I did serge around the bottom of that. I did not serge around the top, just the bottom. Now I'm going to put the elastic in. Right here, I'm going to put a safety pin in just like I always do. Either a safety pin or a straight pin. Here I'm doing a safety pin. I put elastic in the top and the bottom, same way. Now I'm to the end and I'm going to overlap it. I chose the thin elastic because I felt like if that was around, your chest, you would want it to be not so thick and tight. So that's why I chose that elastic. I did not see what the pattern called for. I just did what I wanted. So there I am sewing the elastic. Now I'm doing the bottom. And now I'm closing it up. Back stitching and then closing it up. And then back stitching again. And there it is. Isn't that adorable? So cute. Again, if you want, you can like and subscribe. It's free. And thank you for watching.